gentlemen, welcome back to the Lore Raider. I did not expect to be covering Metroid content on this channel, although admittedly I've been mulling it over for some time. But today I want to discuss something I saw whilst browsing the internet. Something that caught my eye. Two videos, one by the Metroid Trainer and one by the Orpheon, both of which are great channels and I will be linked in the description, and I want everyone to know that this is not an attack against them, this is just a fair criticism against their videos. Now, both videos were about how they thought a battle between SAX and Dark Samus would go. In both videos, I saw horrendous displays of downplay when it came to discussing SAX and its chances at winning, and I figured that I, with my 4 subscribers, would throw my hat into the ring and offer some much needed correction. So to start, let's look at the Metroid Trainer today. Do note that I will only be covering the parts I personally disagree with, for the most part. So feel free to look at their full videos by yourself. Like I said, everything will be in the description, but without further ado, let's get started.
Duplication, or the Dark Echoes, hypnosis, regeneration, durability, and possession. This makes Dark Samus a lot more unpredictable and much more adaptable to changing situations, while the SAX doesn't really have that many unique abilities specific to her, aside from just regeneration and mitosis, which is just duplication. SAX doesn't really show anything unique, making her much more predictable and not really able.
So what is interesting to see here is that he lists all of Dark Samus's abilities and kind of dismisses SEX for having a smaller set. The problem with this argument is that we know for a fact that Dark Samus can be beaten by the regular Samus arsenal already. We've seen it in game, so it's not as though SEX needs a particularly varied skill set to stand a chance. But on top of that, I want to talk about the difference between Dark Samus's Dark Echoes and SEX's mitosis. In short, Dark Echoes are flimsy copies of Dark Samus, while each new SEX is equally powerful as the original. This means that Dark Samus is going to be seeing diminishing returns very quickly when she's putting out these flimsy copies against 2, then 4, then 8 SAXs. This advantage by itself will be more than enough to offset Dark Samus' advantage in her versatility, because there's no way you can argue that if Dark Samus is having problems against just one SAX, she can take on 2.
Samus's abilities and nothing else to really catch Dark Samus off guard, which is why I think Dark Samus has the advantage. Now, let's look at their genetics. We may not know exactly what percentage of Samus these two characters are, but we do know at their very core, Dark Samus is a Metroid, while SAX is an X-Parasite. Since the Metroids are bioengineered to be the perfect predator against the X-Parasites, genetically speaking, Dark Samus has the advantage. SAX may have Samus's abilities and knowledge of the Metroids, but she was easily overwhelmed by a laboratory full of baby Metroids, and even an Omega Metroid, so I find it hard to believe that SAX would have a better chance against a super mutated Metroid stuffed inside a power suit and armed to the...
Okay, slow it down there, buddy. Let's just break down that ridiculous statement. Let's first start with the fact that he said that the SAX was defeated by a bunch of baby Metroids in the hidden lab, and then we'll deal with the Omega Metroid later. The first one is easily debunkable. Anyone who's ever played Fusion remembers walking into the hidden lab and how that works, so keep that sequence of events in mind. We'll get to that later. But we also know that the SEX uses the Ice Beam on both Samus Aran and the Omega Metroid, so let's not pretend the X doesn't know how to battle Metroids. Now please look at the clip of the X losing to the Metroids again that he posted. I'll wait. Do you see it? Okay, if you didn't see it, I'll break it down. Samus Aran entered the hidden lab, and when she got back to that room with the Metroids, suddenly the alarm is off. And what do we see? The lab is in ruins and at the point of collapse when we get back, all in a few seconds. We see the SAX actively shooting the lab itself. I'm going to repeat this, the lab itself. Notice the lack of Ice Beam being used and the damage to the surroundings. We already know from Fusion the X values the survival of its own species over the individual survival, so the subtext here is clearly showing that the SAX decided to sacrifice one of its own in exchange for the lives of dozens and dozens of Metroids by blowing up the hidden lab. That was a worthy cost. We just established the X knows how to battle Metroid, and it makes no sense it wouldn't now. It makes more sense that it would take the lab down with it to get rid of the baby Metroid scourge. So no, the X didn't lose to the baby Metroid. The idea that the SAX lost to an Omega Metroid is even easier to debunk. I mean, did the Metroid Trainer literally forget that the last 3 minutes of the game prior to that event was the SAX getting its butt kicked by Samus Aran? How is a heavily fatigued, near-death SAX leading to an unusually powerful Mega Metroid supposed to be an anti-thief? Consider this is the same Mega Metroid that one-shot the same Samus Aran that beat SAX, and that SAX and Samus had to combine in order to defeat it. I think I have a right to say that I easily debunked this, with no effort. And he also managed to conveniently forget the SAX uses the Ice Beam on this Metroid. But I already covered that in the last point, so let's move on because this isn't even the worst point that he brings in the video.
And theoretically speaking, SAX has full knowledge of Dark Samus. SAX has all of Samus's memories of Dark Samus. SAX would know exactly what Dark Samus is, her tactics, her weaknesses, from all of Samus's encounters and log entries she's seen throughout the games. SAX may have a disadvantage when it comes to armor, weapons, abilities, genetics, but so did Samus at the time, and yet Samus has been able to take on Dark Samus and be successful, so SAX would theoretically know what to do if she comes across Dark Samus. Dark Samus, on the other hand, does also have knowledge of SAX, technically speaking. It isn't really memories or knowledge. Since SAX is basically mimicking Samus, Dark Samus would remember some of Samus's tactics and weaknesses and abilities to be able to counter SAX. But Dark Samus's knowledge of SAX or Samus would kind of be a little flawed since the last time Dark Samus encountered Samus was during Prime 3, and Samus more than likely has changed up her tactics and abilities throughout the various games after Prime 3. Which means Dark Samus's knowledge of what Samus can do might be outdated or flawed, as opposed to SAX, who has full knowledge of.
Okay, credit where credit is due. I do agree with him here. And it will get worse, trust me, but I did want to show this clip to show that I do agree with parts of this video. I'm not just hating on the Metroid Trainer. It is true that Dark Samus could have a vague idea of what SAX can do, minus the mitosis part, and it is true that its knowledge would be outdated. After all, Dark Samus died in Metroid Prime 3, and fought a Samus who's less skilled and experienced than the one in Metroid 2, and that Samus is less skilled and experienced than the one in Super Metroid, who's less skilled and experienced than the one in Metroid Other M, who's less skilled and experienced than the one in Samus and Joy, the manga, which is canon, and I'll leave the interview in the description, who's less skilled and experienced than the Samus in Fusion. So inherently, SEX should already be superior physically and have a higher skill cap than Dark Samus, in my opinion, but that's a minor point. Let's continue.
I believe that Dark Samus has the advantage. Dark Samus is capable of free thought. She can plan strategically and control others with her will. SCX relies mostly on instinct. She doesn't really seem to think for herself, and she's part of a hive mind. The reason I bring this up is to talk about how these two characters would think during the fight. Dark Samus is more capable of thinking of a plan, making strategic choices, and even thinking outside the box for a win. SCX doesn't really seem to be capable of this. She relies mostly on instincts for the most effective and efficient way of taking down an enemy. This may work for enemies that could be considered like feral animals, lower thinking life forms, but for something more complex and intelligent like Dark Samus or Samus in general, her reliance on pure instinct doesn't really help her out, meaning she'll have a difficult time going up against something more complex and strategic like Dark Samus.
Excuse me? Okay, this is the worst point he makes in the entire video of his. He just said that SAX has like feral dog level intelligence. Okay, a casual Metroid fan, will list all the times the X has shown vast intelligence. Let's see, how about the fact that Alan Malkovich's AI constantly praises the X's intelligence through the game? That and they inherently take the intelligence of their prey, that's how the X works. That is how they managed to cause the meltdown in Sector 3, how they managed to shut down the power to the elevators. It's why they decide to actively hunt down and destroy the data rooms to impede Samus's development. It is why one SAX decided to sacrifice itself to purge the station of the Metroid Scourge from earlier. An instinct-based, feral dog-level enemy wouldn't be able to come up with these plans. These are clearly the work of something that knows what it is doing, and given the fact that it ate an entire station worth of scientists, as well as having Samus's memories, the X should be genius level in intelligence. Remember, the X literally sat in ambush to stop Samus from getting to Nettori. That takes premeditated thinking. If you want to get down to the details, you could argue it knew about Samus's PTSD breakdown when facing Ridley in Other M. It created Neo Ridley as a way of psychologically attacking her. There is no way to argue that the X is a mindless, instinct-based creature incapable of planning.
There are also some miscellaneous things we need to cover before we conclude. When we look at alternate forms, Dark Samus has the supercharged form, which powers up Dark Samus, while SAX has the mutated form, which increases size, speed, and mass, but loses access to all of her abilities. I would say Dark Samus has the advantage in this due to not losing all of her abilities, and not relying on just pure brute force to win. Both characters have been defeated by Samus. At their best, Dark Samus was defeated by Hyper Mode PED Suit Samus, which was Samus at her strongest, while SCX was defeated by Gravity Fusion Suit Samus, which is arguably Samus at her weakest. So it takes a lot more to defeat Dark Samus than SAX. Heck, Dark Samus survived an entire dimension imploding on her, while an SAX was destroyed by a laboratory blowing up in space. So Dark Samus is far more durable than SAX. And Dark Samus again is immune to X infection because of her Metroid DNA, but there is no reason to believe that SCX can't be corrupted, meaning she'll fall influence under Dark Samus.
So I actually agree that in their alternative forms, the Dark Samus easily wins if they get to that point. No argument from me here. But where I do disagree with the Metroid Trainer is that the PED suit being the strongest and Fusion Suit Samus being the weakest. I said it once before, but it bears mentioning again, that at least in terms of raw skill and experience, PED Suit Samus is outclassed by herself in Metroid 2, who's outclassed by herself in Super Metroid, who's outclassed by herself in Other M, who's outclassed by herself in Samus and Joey the Manga, who's outclassed by herself in Fusion Suit Samus. More evidence of this would be Meta Ridley is weaker than Omega Ridley, who's weaker than Proteus Ridley, who's weaker than Super Metroid Ridley, who's weaker than Clone Ridley, who's weaker than Neo Ridley. The line of succession just isn't in Dark Samus' favor here. On top of that, the Metroid Trainer is absolutely wrong about durability. Firstly, there's no reason to believe that top tiers in the Metroidverse do not scale to their own durability. It just makes no sense. But if we want to talk actual in-game, evidence, firstly, we know Samus scales to Dark Samus in Prime 3, and she scales to the SDX in Fusion, so case closed, but even more so, there's more evidence, she has another universe-level feat in Samus and Joey the Manga, where she creates a massive white hole that destroys the black holes that were going to swallow the universe. Exeus scales to that Samus directly because she is that Samus, or at least a copy of that Samus. Also, the SCX did not get killed by a simple building-level explosion. In your own clip that you showed to downplay the XAX, you showed it getting swarmed and drained by Metroids, and Metroids, by their very nature, negate durability. So there you go. Finally, both the Metroid Trainer and Orpheon talk about Phazon versus the X as a concept, or like a final battle if they both got to that weakened state. And I have to say, they're both downplaying the X-Parasites if they think they can possibly get infected here. Firstly, why wouldn't the X just eat the Phazon? The Phazon is a living superorganism that has no known effect to not be destroyed by the X. It has nothing in the lore to support that. Secondly, we know that free-floating X-Parasites are completely intangible, more so intangible than ghosts in this universe, because in Prime, we see the Phazon manipulating Chozo ghosts, and in Super Metroid, Samus can pretty casually kill ghosts on a wrecked ship. But in Fusion, we see that Samus can absolutely not harm free-floating X-Parasites with any of her weapons. So that means X, by their very nature, are the most intangible beings, like in the Metroidverse. So there's no reason in the lore to suggest that if Samus can't hurt them, that Dark Samus somehow can. But there's every indication in the verse, because the X are known to be able to eat practically anything. There's nothing to suggest that if Dark Samus just got reduced to a puddle of Phazon, or if Dark Samus shot Phazon at the X can't A, just completely avoid it, or B, just eat it. In fact, the argument, there's more evidence for the argument that this could create another Dark Samus, or a Dark Samus X, by the X absorbing the Phazon, than there is evidence for the Phazon one-shotting or destroying the X, the other way around. So, I see no reason for me to believe that the X has anything to fear from the Phazon. So what do I think? Does the SAX win? Yes, and for one simple reason. See, the fastest speedrun of Metroid Fusion, ignoring dialogue, is 44 minutes. That means Samus cleared the mission, potentially in that time frame. If 10 SAXs were roaming the station, 11 if you count the one that just blew up in the hidden facility, that means that roughly every 4 minutes, a new SAX is being made. Now looking on YouTube, I found that people tend to battle Dark Samus in 5 to 9 minutes. That means in a fight between SAX and Dark Samus, the X could duplicate at least once, if not twice. You can argue Dark Samus beats one SAX, that's fine, but it certainly cannot defeat 2 or 3, and that is the X factor, pun intended, that I think carries the victory here. Well, that is all from me. Thank you for watching. If you want to check out the Metroid Trainer's video and the Orpheon's channel, there will be a link in the description. This is a fun video for me to do, and I hope you enjoyed, and I just want to state again that I have no ill will to either of those channels. This is just my opinion, this is just for fun. Next week though, we will be back to Tomb Raider lore videos, but if you want to see more Metroid content, hit the like button so you can let me know. Take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.